Top Game with your host, Sammy Castro. Episode 19, Chief Warrant Officer Jenn Cocco, Headquarters Marine Corps I Department. To lay a game, it's been a while since the last episode dropped. This interview was conducted back in March when I went back recently to review the content and brought some things back to center. And that's the thing. I'm not positive I can ever keep a periodic release schedule with this podcast. It's just too personal. Truthfully, this is probably one of the most difficult tasks I've undertaken. I hope the audience understands that. Disclaimer, the views and opinions expressed on Top Game are those of the producers and or the guests appearing on the program and do not reflect the views and opinions of the USMC or the Department of Defense. Thanks for tuning in. No pressure. Let me close this door so that nobody just stumbles on in.
I even brought a tissue. I have a tissue. Okay. In case you cry. Yeah, probably.
What's that? In case what?
In case I cry.
So I recorded an episode with my wife recently. And in the very beginning, I read her a love note. So we used to write to each other all the time before text messaging and all of that. And she started crying before I got through the first paragraph. And then towards the end of the episode, I made her cry again when I put her in the time machine. Mm-hmm. And but it was an emotional. Probably the most emotional episode that I've done so far. But what I was looking to do was to, not that I've got it all figured out, but to give a glimpse to a junior Marine of what a somewhat functioning marriage looks like, right? Because I mean, everybody fights, and everybody has their moments, and
it's difficult to be married in the Marine Corps.
Oh yes, mm-hmm. Yes. Here we are, 19 years in, and the question I asked her is if you could go back in time and speak with Miss Lopez before she picked up the phone when I called her to propose at boot camp, what would you tell her? And one of the things that she said was to enjoy every moment, because it goes so fast.
It does.
It goes so fast, and it's. But the other thing she said was, "But I'd do it all over again." And she kind of had me with that too. But so here we sit, me and Chief Warrant Officer. Is it 3 or 4? 3, Jenn Cocco. Let's start off by talking about why we're here in the first place.
Okay. So why I'm here?
Yeah.
Well.
So that mic is just for show. Let me pull that out of your way.
Thank you.
So you can just talk without having to worry about.
So I guess why I'm here is because I started listening to your podcast when I was going through recovery from brain surgery. I couldn't be at work. My mind wasn't functioning where it used to be. And I needed something I forgot a lot of things. I forgot my job. I forgot the doctor asked me what my job title was, and I could only say signals. I couldn't recall the word intelligence. I couldn't recall a lot of things. I guess, so when I was going through recovery, and if you want me to back up, I can at any point in time, but when I was going through recovery, I started listening to your podcast because the pieces of exposure I got through the things that you talked about, some of the, I remember some of the things that were talked about as either being there or knowing that it was going on in the community. And with that little bit of information came a big swath of information for me. So I'm making these little connections, and it's bringing back pieces of my memory that I lost. It turned out that I did have a brain tumor. I was complaining for a long time of forgetting things, and my address, I had to Google my address, and doctors told me, you're just a tired mom. You're a tired mom, that's it. I got to a point where I was not even able to read my emails without like rereading lines like 20 times, and I wasn't sure how to respond, and there are all these other things that happened along with it. But one of the things I was complaining about was inability to recall words. And they said that's just territory when you're tired. That's what happens. But it turned out I had to fight to be seen after I found out I had a brain tumor. It's like, you have a brain tumor? Cool. Like, I could not, for the life of me, get to a doctor that I need to see or that would listen to me. And I finally, when I ended up with the surgeon that I did, the neurosurgeon that I did, he ran tests. He's like, the tumor is invading your Broca region of your brain, which means that's when your verbal recall. So right. I could see words, or I could see an object in my head that I wanted, but I couldn't ask for it. I couldn't say the word. I happened to have the brain surgery. I thought I was doing really good afterwards. It was more invasive than they thought it would be. I got discharged from the hospital under maybe not the best circumstances, but I had in my head that I was going home, so it was a good thing. And then I got meningitis because they didn't dose my steroids correctly. They released me too early. And then I forgot all of the words that I've ever learned in my life. I think that's when I really scared my husband probably the most. But here I am. So the podcast itself means a lot to me because of that, because that was my one thing because we work we work behind closed doors. There's no way for me to access that part of it at home, the part that I would need to see to be able to understand what it is that we do. But I'm starting back at the desk now, and I read my emails that I sent. I read a email chain between Nate Cherubini and myself, and I was like, this is a foreign language. I have no idea what I was talking about. And so some things still are taking a little bit longer to click, but right. I'm just appreciative that I'm able to get back in the seat and right. do my job. I don't know for how much longer, but we'll see.
So how are you doing physically?
I'm doing well. I have some difficulties, if you will. I think like today, it was the first time I ran for 30 minutes straight. Like my brain makes a clicking noise, and it's very annoying. I have to drown it out with headphones and music or podcasts or whatever. And it sounds like not a lot to run for 30 minutes, but right. That's amazing for me.
It's a lot for me. I try to avoid it as much as possible. I started letting big, sweaty dudes choke me before I'd rather go running.
Yeah, so I'm doing great. I have some issues. Like I said, word recall. I still don't feel like I don't feel confident yet. I write emails and I pray for the best. Hopefully what I saw that I put in that email was actually right. what I put in that email, and I send it out. So I apologize to everybody in the community if they get any crazy emails from me. But no, I'm doing really well.
And for the audience, what role are you in right now for the OCFIL?
Right now, I work up at headquarters, Marine Corps Intelligence Department. I work in the EWS section. It's the old plans and policy section that still does plans and policy. So I'm a Signals Intelligence Electronic Warfare Plans and Policy Officer. So
how are you doing emotionally?
Oh, that's a rough one. So I've never had panic or anxiety, and I apparently am a rare individual who is experiencing this post getting your brain torn open phenomenon, where certain frequencies of sounds can set me off into a panic attack. It's lightening up as time goes on. It's very strange. Like, I don't know if you were there for this, but my mother is sitting right here. She is So just
Hi,
for
Mom.
clarity, I'm not
Hi,
talking.
everybody.
I'm not talking to myself. Anyway, I was laying on the couch and when I was recovering and I was sleeping, I woke up in this panic and I just threw my shoes on and my coat on because there was something causing me to go into like some sort of anxiety. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was claustrophobic. It was the sound. There was lawnmowers outside. The people that mow the lawns were out doing their job and leaf blowing. And I ran out of the house. And it turns out like I was okay with the sound outside, but somehow when it was coming through the walls, it changed the frequency, and that's what set me off. I was in a waiting room at the VA. That's an awesome place if you haven't been to the VA in DC. I highly do not recommend it to anyone. But somebody was on their speakerphone, and the mix of all of the people talking in the background and the sound of a voice coming through that speakerphone induced some sort of anxiety in me. But I will say, I haven't had that in a while. So before it was daily, and now it's teetering off. So I'm hoping that I don't have to deal with that anymore.
So how are you doing spiritually?
I'm doing good. I've kept I believe in keeping a positive outlook on things. I wasn't always this person, but so if I back it up, this is not my first severe issue medically that I've had. My girls were 11 days old. I was having trouble breathing.
And how old are they now?
They're 3.
Both of them, they're twins?
Twin girls.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I was complaining. I'd been complaining of these various symptoms, like my limbs felt really heavy. I was having trouble breathing. I felt like there was pressure in my chest, and the doctor told me, "You're not having a heart attack. Go back to work." So I did, and it kept getting worse. And then when they were 11 days old, I ended up in the ER. They were still in the NICU because they were born early, but the doctor thought I was having shortness of breath and chest pressure, and I had hemorrhage during my delivery and needed blood transfusions. So they thought maybe you're just low on blood and need more. So go back to the ER, they'll test your blood. And I'll never forget the look on my husband's face when the doctor came in and said, good news, you don't need a blood transfusion. You're still low, but we think supplementation and some other stuff, you'll be good. And then said, bad news, we found a mass in your chest, emergency referral to ECU. We're so sorry, you're going to beat this. And I was like, I just saw the look on his face. He's like, I'm a new dad of 2 girls. They're not even out of the hospital yet, and my wife's going to die of cancer, because that's kind of how they treated it, And so that was rough, and I went through a full sternotomy in 2016.
Yes.
My girls were a year old.
Full sternotomy?
They saw your rib cage in half and pry you open.
Okay.
And I had the mass removed. It turned out that they think I had what's called myasthenia gravis. It's a autoimmune disorder where any voluntary muscle in your body can fail. So your heart's good, but your lungs aren't. And if you do have a episode, it can be going to what's called a myasthenic crisis, where you stop breathing, you're intubated and put in ICU, and you're taught to breathe. You have to learn how to breathe again.
Wow.
So with this, I had a thymus gland, which you're not supposed to have a functioning thymus gland in adulthood. So the tumor was actually in the same region as the thymus gland. So they went in and removed the thymus gland and the tumor. And that 20% of people go into remission after that surgery, but it takes 2 to 5 years to find out. I think it's 2 to 5 years. It's at least 2 years before you know. And I still get monthly infusions, so I'm trying to wean off of that. And I thought that was the worst of my issues, and then they're like, surprise, brain tumor. So, but I keep positive. So spiritually, right. That's been a hard, long road for me medically and my family. I can't imagine the crap I put my parents through, let alone like
just a little bit.
The crap I put my husband through. But I don't believe that you should let it steal any joy. Right. So we nicknamed my brain tumor Felicia, and we had, the Straight Outta Compton logo. We had that changed into Straight Outta Jenn's head and plastered that on the back of a t-shirt and Bye Felicia on the front. And we had a going away party for her at I Department.
That's awesome.
Because I believe that you have to have humor. You have to have humor. And I could have let this kill me mentally.
Yeah.
What would it do to my family or my kids or anything? And why do you want to live in misery? Like, you have to, I feel like you just have to find the joy in life and live that joy. It doesn't matter what else is happening. But if you let that other shit steal your joy, you're done. You're done. You might as well, toss yourself in the casket right then, because your life's over. It's one thing to get down on yourself. It's one thing to have sad moments, but you have to pick yourself up and you have to keep moving forward.
Definitely. So, to a certain extent, do you feel like you're on borrowed time?
We're all on borrowed time. You don't know what's going to happen when we walk out the door.
But has it heightened that?
Yes. And one of the things, so I brought this box of goodies. So I did listen to your interview with your wife, and I appreciate what you said, because you said the things that a lot of times somebody who's in the position, who's almost a caretaker for somebody going through something like that, is they hide from the person because they don't want to put them through anything else. And then the person who's got the illness or whatever, they hide things because they don't want to do that to the people around them either. Yeah. So I really appreciate what you said. But when it first happened, my whole world crashed down. I literally found out via email at work at I Department, and when 2 seconds before the chief of staff comes over and asks me a question, and I was like, he's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm fine. I'm great." He's like, "No, you don't look okay." I'm like, "No, I'm absolutely amazing." He's like, "No." And then I was like, I have a brain tumor, and I just lost it because it's an odd circumstance that I found out via email that I had a brain tumor, but that's what happened. But I lost it, and I went to pick my kids up from daycare, and apparently I looked like a hot mess because they're like, "Are you, Mrs. Cocco, are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm great." They're like, "No." And this one lady, Miss Mavis, she's like, "I need to pray for you." She's like, "Can I pray over you?" I was like, "Yeah, go ahead." And she asked me what happened, and I told her, and she prayed for me, and she still sends me these motivational texts every so often, and I have to thank her. But I went and I bought a journal because I was like, there's so many things I want to say to the people around me, and heaven forbid this goes south. I want my kids to know how much I love them and all the things that I'm so proud of. And then sorry, my mom grabbed my reserve tissue. But I have this journal, and to this day it's empty. And the reason why it's empty is because after a few days, I said to myself, I will write in this journal one day, but this isn't my end, so I'm not going to act like it's my end. And
not today.
No, not today.
Like Aria.
But I still want to, I made me think I still want to tell my kids these things. So I still want to write that down, but it wasn't going to be then.
So view it as a script, like notes. Mm-hmm. So I lost my father to an aneurysm. Mm-hmm. And we grew up together. He was 15 when I was conceived. And he was my best friend. And he's a hard man, but he was firm and he was fair, and he prepared me for life. Some of the things that I found myself in at a young age, 16, 17, rolled up in an attempted murder case, and all kinds of just shit that I hope my sons never have to experience. And losing him really took the wind out of my sail at a time when I was, young staff sergeant going full speed ahead, ruthless, vicious, relentless, aggressive, didn't wait for permission, did it anyway kind of thing. And, what we expect out of a fire-breathing staff NCO before they pick up gunny. And I used to even, as a tactical team leader, as an SST team leader, I used to take risks and gain a temporal advantage, in not a reckless fashion, but definitely with one that was informed by the understanding that if anything happened to me, my father would be there for my sons. Mm-hmm. And when he was gone, I had to question that. Like, would my hesitance on the battle space cause a mistake, an error that could result in other people's lives? Would I be able to lead in the same way that I had up to that point? And it forced me to really contemplate those what ifs and scenarios and situations, as you can imagine. And when I made the decision to remove my father from life support because the rest of the family was having a hard time dealing with that, and I think I mentioned it in the interview I did with Jim Mush. Was, I'd heard Jordan Peterson say in a podcast interview that we should aspire to be the most reliable person at our father's funeral, and I did that. But it didn't mean that I felt like I was complete or whole. Mm-hmm. I did it because it needed to get done, but it was a labor of love that took a lot out of me. And it wasn't until I returned back to San Angelo after dealing with his funeral and his affairs that I started to really kind of feel the gravity of the situation, because I compartmentalized it and pushed it away to deal with the matter at hand. As the eldest son, and that logical decision maker, right? Let's take the emotion out of the situation. What needs to get done, and we'll do that. And the other aspect of it was, Texan, Mexican American male. We don't really get too deep into our emotions. Although this is episode like 20 something, and I think that I've successfully worked against that to a certain extent. But my chain of command CO at the time was Doug March, mm-hmm. and he pushed me to seek grief counseling, and I took that as an out to do it because they're kind of making me do it, and it was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that was asked of me was, what characteristics about your father did you admire the most? And for me, it was how selfless he was towards others. He would do anything mm-hmm. for anybody, particularly those he loved, to a fault. And and when we kind of explored that those characteristics in that aspect of him, the next question was, of those that were close to him and are as close to you, I want you to go and see if they see those characteristics in you. And man, to a T. Mm-hmm. And but I couldn't see it. And the encrypted message in that was, your father's still here. Mm-hmm. And everything that he taught you by his example. And with that, the lessons are still continuing today. They're uninterrupted. And I think the same would apply for your girls. Mm-hmm. I think the same would apply for your girls in a way that the three of us sitting here can't even contemplate just yet. Mm-hmm.
I think you're definitely right in that one.
But I would say, write them down.
And that's why, that's literally why I got that for your wife. It's a journal.
It says, nevertheless, she persisted.
Yeah. It's just empty, but
yeah,
if she ever feels like
writing. Yeah. So and we talked about this the other night during our inaugural episode of the Hot Wash, where I'm going to start sitting down with multiple previous guests and have like a group conversation. One of the guests, John Scoggins, pontificated about the point that he can't say certain things on social media. Mm-hmm. There are some times though where I'll break ranks, and the one thing was about Elizabeth Warren, and how she wasn't going to shut up. I'm not a card carrier member of either party, but I was raised by strong women that could put up with men like my dad. Mm-hmm. The type of women that will discharge a firearm at an aggressor if it's required, and they've done so. Who've been cut up in family altercations, and lived to tell the tale. Women of grit, and I married a woman like that, and that's no secret. And I would not be half the man or half the Marine that I am if it were not for Elizabeth. So nevertheless, she persisted is definitely one of her trademarks, or informs about her character. So I appreciate that. She's gonna love it.
Good.
So what else you got in this box over here?
Okay, so I have a podcast unofficial sponsorship package, I guess. so next I am not a Scotch whiskey drinker.
Me either.
But this one I found, it says, however the hell you pronounce it, has a generous spirit which flows from the two pioneering women, Helen and Elizabeth Cummings, who co-founded and built upon the distillery. So it's a woman's Scotch whiskey, so hopefully they do it justice, because I have no idea.
Cardew.
And then, wait, this one's my book, that's not yours. So next I have, you always talk about books.
I do.
Have you read this one?
I haven't, but it's on my list.
Okay, well now it's yours.
Okay.
So you can take it off your list and just you can read it.
So here's what I've been doing to get through books faster. If I get a hard copy and I have the audio book, I put it on double or triple time, and I fly through it. So I get it in two dimensions, right? Visual and auditory at the same time, and I retain it better.
Do you?
Yeah.
I just had this, my husband and I got into this dispute because we are both Audible junkies. Mm-hmm. We both listen to podcasts or Audible books, or audiobooks on Audible. But my problem is, since surgery, I need to exercise my brain, number one, and listening alone does not do it. And I get lost and I can't I have to go back, keep hitting the back button, and it pisses me off. So I like to see it. So I've been doing more books than normal, because normally the stuff I'm reading is work. And then I am podcasting or listening to an audiobook on the drive or on the commute or whatever. But yes, I finished that book and it's interesting. It's pretty good. I like it. Okay, it's called Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, so nobody can see that. But he's a Navy SEAL. He went through some serious garbage growing up. Right. And I'm going to say Jim Mush would be very proud of me for not cursing right now. But
you can curse. We're an explicit,
okay.
We're explicit rated podcast.
But he talks about the stuff that he went through, and he went in something crazy, 3 months from being 200 and high 200s, almost 300 pounds, wow, to going to buds, because he said, I'm not going to let that kill me. I'm going to use my pain, physical pain, emotional pain, and I'm going to use that to drive me. I'm going to callous, he calls it the callous mind. But Yeah, so it's a pretty good book, and everybody I know that's read it really likes it.
So I know he did an interview recently on the Joe Rogan podcast, but I haven't listened to it. I'm also I don't listen to every single episode, but I get through quite a bit of them. The Jocko Willing podcast. But I've been wanting to read this book, and actually, it's in my cart for. I subscribe to Audible, so I get credits.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm tapped out. The one that I just picked up recently was recommended to me by Murph, which was Like War by P.W. Singer.
Oh gosh, Murph has the most fantastic library at iDepartment.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
But go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, so recently he shot out an email, and I responded back to him, and then I introduced him to Lieutenant Colonel that I've been working with the past 2+ years that I've been out in Okinawa, Hank Hurt. Shout out to 3rd Mardiv. And introduced him as my adopted mentor when it comes to all things EW, because Colonel Hurt justifiably poked me in the chest and said, "Top, don't take this the wrong way, but I see you as big SIGINT / little EW." And there's probably some validity to that. Although I would argue that on an SST collection team, the majority of what you're doing is EW.
I would argue that you're correct.
Say again?
I would argue that you're correct.
But it's not advertised or briefed that way. And you know, in my mindset at the time, I didn't think about it in those terms as a team leader. But now I know better. And so from that perspective, I've been able to kind of I'll cross the parking lot from the MEF to the division and cover down with those guys to provide some SME input from time to time, although I don't necessarily feel comfortable couching it like that, but definitely getting into the fight. So what else do we have over here?
Well,
it's like Christmas all over again.
I'm reading. I accidentally put this. This is a book I'm reading. I'm reading Jocko's book right now.
So I've read that
Extreme
one.
Ownership,
Yeah.
and I just picked up the Dichotomy of, what is it?
I'm reading that one right now.
Oh, are you? I just picked it up.
Dichotomy of Leadership.
My husband's like, "You just spent $80 at Barnes and Noble." I'm like, "I need to see it."
Hey, I'll give you my wife's phone number. You can use her educator discount. We won't tell nobody. Yeah.
Thank you.
20% off.
But I feel bad because I brought this in. I was clearing out my bookshelf the other day, and I had remembered how one of your podcasts, you said that your son is very into philosophy.
Yeah.
Well, I took this college class. My ethics class was actually philosophy through pop culture. So I was cleaning. I was like, I don't need this college book. So I know your kid's like not in college, but it talks about... He's
reading at a college level.
Right, but it talks about like Batman and like the ethics of Batman and the Joker and the...
It's funny because in the Hot Wash episode we started digging deep into Batman and the Joker and Bane and Ra's al Ghul and all that.
But it has like the Office and... the UK version of The Office, it talks about, but still, nonetheless, it's The Office. I'm good with that. That was actually my recovery. Like, I couldn't follow, like sitcom, or not sitcoms, like TV shows. If there was any plot that you had to like remember the last episode. So I watched The Office, all 9 seasons. I mean, it's not my first time watching it. It's probably not my third time watching it. It's probably like up there. But I watched that to help me, like to occupy me, because I didn't have to follow each episode to, you didn't have to know what happened in the last one and know what happens in this one. But it was actually a pretty interesting book, but I thought maybe your kid might like it.
Enrique will love it.
So there you go.
Definitely.
But yes, that's my little podcast support care package.
We appreciate it.
So
let's talk about the podcast. Mm-hmm. When you first heard that there was a podcast about the community or whatever this thing is about, what was your reaction?
I didn't have judgment. I didn't know what it was about until I started listening. And then I instantly approved. There's,
who told you about it?
You did, via Facebook.
Okay.
I think that's how I found out. Good advertising.
Yeah.
And actually, I went to work, I think it was it Friday? And I told Chris Passarella, Major Passarella, that you wanted to interview me. And he's like, do it. I was like, well, I said I would because I told Sarah that I wanted to hear a woman's voice and you need to do the podcast. Because I know that you guys go back.
We do go back. And that was one of my major criticisms, not only from her, from a lot of the female Marines that have, I can't say they adopted me, but I identified me, marked me as being someone that I can go to that's in the boys club, but will battle within the boys club on, to advocate for them when the situation arises, when they feel like they have nowhere to turn. But I have to do that carefully, right? But and like I was telling, I think it was Sarah the other day, we had an instance where a young lady who was TAD to us had just given birth. There was not a lactation room at 3 MEF Camp Courtney, Okinawa, Japan. But we made one. And she had access to every freezer in our workspace to stock up. And whenever I heard the grumblings or the mumbling or the snickering about, it was shut down instantaneously. My boys were breastfed.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't breastfeed my kids because they were preemies, and not to go to TMI. And they would burn too many calories to breastfeed. I had a pump. Nonstop, every 2 hours around the clock for 6 months. It almost killed me. When they found out I had myasthenia gravis, they're like, you have to stop breastfeeding. Because it's literally it's gonna kill you. It's gonna send you into crisis. I was like, I'm gonna make it to 6 months. But we were at 2nd Radio Battalion, we were in the old Paraloft. That place is dirty as hell. It's like a deployed skiff, plywood walls and all sorts of stuff. And we called the women's bathroom the Bat Cave because there was one light that flickered. And if it, the door, you had to hold just the right way and jiggle it right to get the lock to open. And it's only one person in there at a time. But that's where they wanted you to breastfeed. So it's either or a pump. But I was the assistant OPSO for the battalion. And thank God I worked with super awesome people. Loretta was in there, Sanaben. There's a few other people in there at the time. But anyway, I was allowed to.
I love her, by the way.
Loretta and I go way back from the time before I was a SIGINTer.
Okay.
I'm a lat mover, by the way. Surprise.
I was going to get into that. You outed yourself first.
I did. But they actually let me pump at my desk. I was covered. You couldn't see it. Yeah. I would just put the pump on the desk and people would see the pump and just be like, ugh. But all the guys in the office were all dads whose wives breastfed, and they're like, I wouldn't want my kid eating in the Bat Cave. If the light goes out, there's going to be some Lord of the Flies type stuff happening. They were super supportive because there was the only place to pump or breastfeed was down the road at Battalion and the aid station there, the BAS. So nobody has time for that. Nobody has time to walk to their car to go get that stuff done. You waste enough. I feel like I wasted enough time, having to do that every 2 hours. And it was stressful for me because I wanted to work. I wanted to get my work done. And you're taken away from it. And especially as I got pregnant at 16 years into the Marine Corps, and I felt guilty. I felt guilty that I got pregnant and somebody else had to pick up my slack. At 16 years in the Marine Corps, that's I shouldn't have felt that way. No. But I did. So I think as a woman, you have a constant battle with yourself, about motherhood and your role. Because if you look at it, and it's still, even in society in the Marine Corps, I'm dual active family. A lot of it defaults to me. My husband's job is not that they're not understanding, but it's different. It's a different mindset. He has a different role and responsibility than I do. What rank is he? He is a master sergeant. He's over at MARSOC. He's still stationed down, I think, at Regiment in North Carolina. So, and I'm up here. We got orders separate. So I'm up here with the girls by myself. But yeah.
How's the commute?
To North Carolina?
No, to...
It's like, because it sucks.
To I-Department.
I-Department, it's not bad. So I live on Fort Belvoir. I never thought I'd like living on a base, and it's been awesome. Maybe because it's not a Marine Corps base, I don't know. But I live in the ghetto housing where they don't take your full BH, and it's not really ghetto. It's just the older section. And I have a 2-bedroom, like townhouse type thing there. So that's nice. But what I do is, like, my girls go to CDC on Belvoir. I drop them off in the morning. I drive about 10 minutes to the metro, and then I take the metro. And that's like 28 minutes that I get to read or do something for myself, that I'm not busy driving. I have kids. I'm not at work. So that's when I either read a book or I audible in the car, or or I do a podcast in the car. But I mean, that's the time where I can physically, like, if I want to zone out and look at my phone, I can zone out and look at my phone for that 28 minutes on my way.
So what other podcasts do you listen to besides Top Game?
Jocko, I listen to his. Actually, my kid's favorite book.
His is rough for me.
It is.
I mean, it's like you got to eat you got to eat your vegetables, and I just feel like it's something that you got to get through.
Yeah.
But it's not.
They're long. They are.
It's
long.
not enjoyable.
He's a very rigid.
Definitely.
My kid's favorite book is actually Jocko's book. My husband bought it for them.
The Way of the Warrior Kid?
No, it's the dragon one.
Oh, okay.
Mikey and the Dragon.
Yeah.
So they love that book.
Okay.
Love it.
So you have your girls training jiu-jitsu?
Not yet. We want to.
So you let me know, and I will get them Prodigy Geese from Origin.
Actually, one of my really good friends, I don't know if you know her, Lori Porsche. Mm-mm. She is a diehard jiu-jitsu fan. She was doing some of the competitive fight series that go up here, so I got to see her fight in them. Okay. But she's like, when are my nieces getting into jiu-jitsu? So, every place around me right here is like, they have to be 5. I'm like, well, that's BS. So, so I definitely want, I'm really... I don't want to say obsessed with raising strong girls, but I do not want them for a second to not know that they have a voice. And I do not want them to not be able to defend themselves. That's bottom line for me. And if somebody starts something with them, I want them to finish it. Yeah. So so they're going to be rolling into jiu-jitsu. Actually, if I go back to North Carolina, we've already scoped out that they just opened up 2 jiu-jitsu studios in like 10 minutes of our house.
I will tell you, it's a very personal decision where you decide to go. And for me, the best way to get a good assessment is to actually get on the mats yourself. And physically, you may be precluded from that, but I definitely, I highly recommend it. Not every school or every environment is going to be right for every family.
So I got turned off to jiu-jitsu a little bit, and not, let's see. I dated a guy who was very into jiu-jitsu for a while, and he's pretty toxic, but that's beside the point. So he told me, he's like, I really want you to get into jiu-jitsu, but he told me, I only want you to roll with the girls. I was like, why? He's like, no, I don't want you rolling with guys. I was like, he's like, guys are, insinuating that guys were like utilizing jiu-jitsu to get one over on a girl or whatever. And I'm like, well, what does that say about you? Like, if you're going to tell me that and try to persuade me not to do something like that, what does it say about you and how you treat that sport? So at first I was like, I don't want anything to do with that. And then Lori was the one that actually opened me back up to it. Yeah. Yeah.
I roll with the ladies all the time, young girls. My first, I guess, thought that comes in my head when I'm rolling with somebody smaller or younger or weaker than me from a physical strength standpoint is do no harm, right? And a lot of it depends on the professor and the type of environment that he cultivates. Because in some places you'll find just a bunch of tough guys just trying to get tougher, as opposed to an environment where people are just trying to get better. And I can't say I never, but I no longer view my training partners as my competition.
Right.
And although I don't compete in the tournaments, I genuinely enjoy watching my training partners win. And especially like for some of the young guns that I roll with, like Jameson Aguirre and Maquito and others, young Okinawan kid and another young sergeant that trains with me. They're both blue belts. Well, actually, Maquito just picked up his purple belt. I always ask them, like, what are you working on, or what are your strengths, or what's your game plan, and just spending time with them on the mats. I start to kind of understand that inherently. And so if I know that one of them is having difficulty with guard retention, I start working on my guard passing to make him get better at that. And then the other thing is, because I travel a lot. More so now than probably any other assignment that I've had, I get an opportunity to walk into gyms as a guest. And the last thing you want to do when you do something like that is,
be a jerk on the mat. Yeah.
Be toxic, right? Like you said. And so our school has like 5 or 6 different locations that we train at on Okinawa. So no matter what day of the week it is, it may be a little bit of a drive, but I can get to somewhere where my team is training. Yeah. But each location is a little unique. And one of the locations is at the Ginawan Community Center out in town. The majority of the population at that location are almost all Japanese. And the Japanese won't roll with you until they trust you. And because one of the young kids is about the same size as my eldest son, I used to roll with him all the time. He would roll with Enrique, and they go back and forth. But when Enrique wasn't around, because it's usually late at Ginawan when I'm out there, I'd roll with this young kid, and the other Japanese would see, Sam is strong, but he's not mean. And so then we get to the point where they'll come to me and ask me to roll. And even the Japanese women will come to me and ask me to roll. And that's kind of something you have to kind of work your way up to, kind of like Jane Goodall with the gorillas.
The gorillas?
Yeah, so they've Jane Goodalled me into their tribe, and I get to roll with all of them. But like I said, it's a very personal choice. Yeah. And I would say that what may be right for a friend may not be right for you, especially when your young daughters are part of the equation. You want to make sure that you make that choice carefully, and ask around. I've been asked by friends recently to go try this gym and that gym just to kind of scope it out from an informed perspective, because they want their daughters to train or their son to train. So I give recommendations as I can, but it's always with that caveat. Like you will walk in and you will know if this place is right. And if you see something that you don't agree with, the part of the culture is that the Brazilians will say no creonte, which means you're not going to be a traitor. You have to be loyal to your instructor. But there's a different culture. There's a cultural fusion that's taken place within jiu-jitsu, particularly as it's become more Americanized, in that we see it from a capitalist perspective. Like, I'm the client, and you're the service provider, and this is what I expect, and so there's some of that, and you'll find out which happy medium is going to work best for you and yours. But for us, where we've been, and that's the other thing, is being in the military, we're transient by nature. So, it'd be different if I was in my hometown and we lived there all our lives, and that's the school that we trained at. Moving would be a little difficult, but because that's not the case for us, we're at locations maybe 4 or 5 years at the most, if we're lucky, then, you kind of have a little bit more say. And you're not as locked in as you would be otherwise. But besides what are you listening to, and you already talked about what are you reading, and you also talked about what you're watching, let's talk about what music you listen to.
Oh, man.
Like, what's Jenn Cocco's happy song?
Oh, geez, happy song. Oh, gosh, I don't even know. I like to listen to a little bit of everything except for twangy bluegrass. I'm not really into that. I went to college in Alabama, so I had some negative experiences being a New Yorker with an apparently very thick Jewish grandma accent that went down to deep South Alabama, where they do not like Yankees, and I was a damn Yankee because I was staying. That was even worse, apparently. Right. So I liked country once I left there. I didn't like it when I was there because it was everything. I hated it. And then I started listening. I was like, oh, this isn't so bad. But a little bit of
pop
country.
Like new country or old school country? I
like some old school, but I like some a little bit newer. I do like some Kenny Chesney now. Okay. But that's not my primary focus. I'm more of so I have rap and hip hop, and I have some pop on my workout and lifting tracks. Right. I have I like Five Finger Death Punch. I like acoustic stuff. I like everything. It's hard for me. That's hard for me to say because I can't remember what I ate for breakfast.
Right. So, have you ever heard of Sturgill Simpson?
Who is it?
Sturgill Simpson. Mm-mm. I was introduced to him from the Joe Rogan podcast, but he's got an album out where he talks. It's essentially the entire album is a love letter,
really,
to his son.
Oh,
and it's called. So I don't get it wrong. It's called A Sailor's Guide to Earth.
Okay. I'll have to look that up. It's iTunes?
How do you, that's my next question. How do you listen to music? Do you stream it?
I do usually.
Or you buy the album still?
Sirius or iTunes. I never buy a CD or anything else anymore.
You buy the digital.
I do download. A digital download. But my digital downloads are mostly now. I have some meditation ones. I'm kind of big on meditation lately. Well, actually, I've been for a while. Mostly listen to it when I'm falling asleep because then that subliminal stuff kicks in. Mm-hmm. But I do get a few, mostly my workout music, I download digitally. Other than that, I'll listen to music when I'm driving on Sirius. I'll stream through just about everything. But I'm only really downloading my workout music now. The rest of my time, and I'm being completely honest when I say I don't think I listen to music very often anymore. I'm scrolling through news stations, listening to all the different news stations on Sirius if I'm driving. I feel this for a long time. I could never read fiction. Fiction was a waste of time for me in my head. Really? Because I always want to learn something new, something different. And when I started reading fiction was brain tumor-esque. When my brain wasn't focusing as much as I wanted to be able to extract the information, I started reading a little bit of fiction, random stuff like that. My neighbor, she's super awesome. She would give me books that she read. Some of them I had absolutely, I was not doing, but some of them were okay just for mindless, kind of
right
time consumption. but now I'm back into my nonfiction. So music isn't as big for me right now. Even like I'm listening to podcasts walking around the house. I'm listening to an audiobook walking around the house or cleaning. I listen to music when I work out. That's my time for music.
So I found myself sometimes having to, like you said, when I work out, but usually when I'm working out, I'm doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Or I'm swinging a kettlebell, and at which point in time, then that's usually when I'll put music on. But we've been subscribers to Apple Music for quite a while. And before that,
do you like it?
I love it.
Really?
Love it. So if I tell Siri, hey Siri, play me some music, and I'm glad I didn't kick off the recording right now because I'm using my iPhone to record. New setup on Top Game. Their algorithm for capturing your musical taste and what it'll play are pretty legit.
Really?
The algorithm has gotten good.
Has it?
I mean, at least Apple's. I had a lot of problem with Spotify. Spotify I enjoyed most when I was listening to playlists that had been curated by professionals.
Yeah.
Tastemakers who were cultivating, a mixtape, a digital mixtape, and there was a great article that I read in Wired magazine a while back how the different music subscription services are poaching those playlist makers that are capable of identifying what the next hits are.
I will say, I have found some good, suggestions on iTunes from, other stuff I've ordered, back in the day, Ray LaMontagne, I think, and Jack Johnson I've liked, but I was listening to him, and then it suggested this other guy, and then there's a few other people, James Morrison I like, too.
So when you get a chance, go to that Sergio Simpson album and listen to his cover of In Bloom by Nirvana. It's legit.
I'll have to do that.
So you said rap and hip hop. Let's talk about that.
Okay, so I like some old school stuff. I like
obviously you like some West Coast, back in the day, Eazy-E, Compton's.
I do. NWA.
Maybe not Compton's Most Wanted, but I love me some Compton's MC8.
I have I was listening some French Montana song the other day. I love Lil Wayne.
Lil Wayne?
I do.
You're almost embarrassed to admit that.
I love it.
So
Drop the World.
Yeah,
that's my anthem.
My youngest son told me the other day. He said, "Dad," I said, "What, mijo?" He says, "Real G's move in silence like lasagna."
Oh man!
I died laughing. He's 12.
I don't even know what I'm going to do. My kids are that old. They're already full of sass right now.
But it's interesting because their musical taste is so varied. Now, we follow each other as a family, so I can see what Enrique's listening to, and I can see what Vicente's listening to. Yeah. I see what Liz is listening to, and then we can collaborate on playlists and shoot music to each other. Hey, check this out, kind of thing. And so for Vicente, he always liked hip hop. Enrique, I think he likes it too, but he's much more selective about it because he plays a trumpet, he plays a violin. He's asking for a guitar now. He can teach himself music. He's at that point. It's basic to him to a certain extent. Whereas Vicente, he has a Machina Micro, he has a Machina Jam, which are these audio production tools that combine with software on your computer, and he makes his own stuff. Man. So both of them are into music, but from different ends, right? And you can see how their personalities reflect in that. But he recently when we moved to our new house off base, new neighbor kid, Gabe, him and Gabe they're thick as thieves, and in the mornings I get up, and even though I don't have to be at work till about 8-ish, I'll drive them to the bus stop. Them two, my oldest son and Gabe's older brother, who's in high school with Enrique, and I'll play music in the morning and introduce him and Gabe, Vicente and Gabe, to some rap artists that they've never heard of. And it's like the other day we were listening to Top Authority out of Flint, Michigan, like old school hardcore gangster rap, right? And Gabe's like, this is nice, Mr. C. Who's this? This is Top Authority, boy. What you know about that? And it's like, oh, and then they start looking it up, and I'm gonna jam that, and that kind of stuff. But the other thing about that is now the boys, because Liz insisted on getting a record player, they appreciate vinyl.
That's cool. So, and vinyl's like making a comeback, apparently.
It is. So I just dropped like $100 on 3 discs. Whenever I travel, I bring back something for the family. Probably more than I should. So last time around that I was here, I think I got Liz a Prince album. I got Enrique Nirvana album, and I got Vicente a limited edition Kendrick Lamar album.
Oh, nice. I like Kendrick.
Yeah. So this time around, I got Liz a Sade album.
Oh, nice.
That is
it's on my playlist.
That was helpful during our courting phase, let's just say. For Vicente, I got him the Nas Illmatic 20th anniversary release. And then for Enrique, what did I get him? Oh, I got him a Jimi Hendrix album. And of course, they play that music, but of course they listen to it more often when we're not at the house, when they're on their AirPods or whatever.
I feel like they're kind of born with it. Like when my kids were very little. Like I just bought them home from the hospital. Sadie loved Renegades by Ex-Ambassadors. Like that's what she wanted to listen to. Adele. Like she was like this acoustic, like calm. And the other one was Lily. She's straight madness. Like she liked pop. She liked some rap. It's weird. I guess the beats soothed her more on each side. But they both came with these. And so now my kid asks for Sadie, I have a Bluetooth speaker in their room that I stream through my phone. I have like playlists and stuff, but Sadie will ask me for Adele. Right now, I am drowning in a frozen hell with Let It Go. Because one of them, Lillian, I started putting them in dance class. And Lily is She freaks me out. She feels music. She lets it flow through her when she moves. It's not normal for a 3-year-old. And I bring her to dance class and she just stands there and stares at the teacher. Doesn't dance at all. I mean, she points her. My mother was very into ballet. She went to Joffrey. She grew up in a very ballet-esque lifestyle. Anyway, and she played the piano and the guitar, and I got none of her talent, none of it. I am accident-prone as hell, and I have no talent artistically. But she, Lily will point her toe like an adult ballerina. So the other day, I take her to dance class, I drop them off, and I go to pick them up, and the ballet teacher comes out. She's like, so Lily's not normal. I was like, okay, not news to me. My kids aren't normal. Right. They're very weird. But she's like, she doesn't move like any other child I've seen. I was like, what? They're like, she points her foot like an adult ballerina would. She walks like an adult ballerina would. She sees things and she imitates it. And Sadie's my little gangster child. She's over there waving her hands over, shaking her booty. But it's like she's got this, she just feels music. It flows through her and you can see it in her movements. She's feeling it. And right now she feels Let It Go to the point that she thinks Elsa's name is Let It Go. She's like, I want to be Let It Go. I'm like, okay, cool. So yeah, they just have their own personalities with music already. I'm interested to see what that turns out to be like. Cause I won't say it's my taste all the time. And I won't say that I actually imprinted that on them. I didn't influence it in them. Right. It's strange that when I was just trying to search for anything that would calm at least one of 2 screaming, infants, I found that they had their own little style already. There is this weird
sweet spot that the boys and I and Liz can all agree on. and it's the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, I love the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah. So when the kids are in bed, what are you streaming on TV?
Oh, okay.
You mentioned The Office, right?
Yeah, that was recovery. Like, I did 9 seasons in about like a week, probably. No, I'm just kidding. It was a little bit more than a week, but
week and a half.
Yeah, but I was just stuck on the couch because I'd have a good stretch where I was like walking and I'm feeling like, because my limitations were for like 30 days was like mild walking, which sucks. Like, I want to do things. And so, but I took my recovery pretty seriously. And then I would like hit a phase where I ended up back in the hospital because I would be confined to my couch. So I had nothing to do but watch stuff on TV. Because reading, I could read like a paragraph and my brain shut off. So I couldn't really read at the time. So then I started, what did I stream I just watched Russian Doll.
So you Netflix, you Amazon Prime?
Netflix and
Hulu,
Amazon Prime, not
HBO.
Hulu. We do have HBO, although somehow the password changed. My husband doesn't know what it is because we have 2 households. Like, I pay for DirecTV, and with DirecTV comes, like, down there comes HBO free, so we get it streamed on our HBO Go or whatever. And up here, I have to have Verizon, which sucks. Like, I don't even know what channels I have. Like, I have 3 of them, and you have to go through 3,000. Like, 3,000 channels are telling you you haven't subscribed to this channel. I'm like, I don't. I really have the Disney Channel. I know that I have that. Yeah. That's it. And some weird Reston, Virginia yoga local station. I don't know. So I have the option to put Netflix up there, and my brother gave us a Chromecast, so I Chromecast some things up there. Like, we do a lot of YouTubing of space shuttle launches for my kids. It's their thing now. It's okay. But for me, like, I just watched Russian Doll. What else did I watch? Oh, man. I can't remember anything.
I'm on the Umbrella Academy right now.
Is that good? My husband and I were contemplating it the other night.
I'm enjoying it. It's kind of like we were talking about this the other night with Sam and those guys. It didn't make it into the episode. It was at dinner. It's kind of like an amalgamation of X-Men with Watchmen.
Okay.
But it's got she was Juno. She was in Inception.
Ellen Page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like her.
I like her too.
I like her.
I did Designated Survivor with my husband.
But the interesting thing is, so she's number 7. The premise of the story is that on a certain day at a certain point in time, all of these kids across the earth were born whose mothers were not pregnant the day before. So they were conceived and birthed.
Immaculate conception.
Yeah, but there was a significant number of them. So this billionaire went around the world and adopted as many as possible. He was able to collect 7 of them. Well, of the 7, number 7, Ellen Page, didn't exhibit any powers. And so she was kind of ostracized from their crime-fighting escapades. And I'll just leave it at that, and you can kind of dig in on your own. But there's some twists laid out for you. But it's very well done. I've enjoyed it so far. There's some, like I said, there's some quirky twists that make the ride memorable. But Liz got me on to This Is Us.
I haven't watched it yet.
And a Million Little Things.
I watched Parenthood. I just streamed Parenthood, that series.
Okay.
Which was pretty good. I haven't seen This Is Us.
Yeah.
I've heard nothing but good things about it.
It's great.
And Good Girls. I watched Good Girls with my husband the first season.
Yeah, This Is Us and is a tearjerker, and A Million Little Things is kind of along those same lines too. So when the boys are in bed, Liz and I, hey, there's a new episode, so we'll sit down and stream it. But I'm a diehard HBO fan. I've been ever since I was a little kid. My grandfather was I think maybe not the only one in the family, but the one I remember most having an HBO subscription, and we'd watch Westerns and whatever happened to be on.
Game of Thrones and Ballers. Yeah, so those were our 2 HBO ventures, I think. And The Deuce. And The Deuce. What? Which one?
I like The Deuce.
Yeah.
So the guy that did The Deuce, David Simon, is responsible for several other shows on HBO that if you like The Deuce, it's worth digging into. So Treme was the most recent one before The Deuce. And it covers the Reconstruction time period after New Orleans got slammed by Katrina.
Okay.
And then prior to that, if I'm not mistaken, was Generation Kill.
Okay.
Which is like my experience in not being a recon, but being a sergeant team leader in Iraq in the 03-04 time frame. Because it tells, that conflict from a NCO's perspective. He also had The Wire, which is based in Baltimore, early 2000s.
Police drama.
Yeah, but there's no black and white. It's all gray.
Yep.
Very memorable characters, and a lot of the cast from The Wire have gone on to become well-known actors, to include Michael B. Jordan, and Idris Elba, and a few others. So I definitely recommend The Wire, but it's 5 seasons, so there's plenty there.
My husband and I have this really dynamic thing going on where I wait to watch things until he's with me, and then I find out that he's watched it already because he's like, well, what else am I going to do? I'm sitting in a house by myself. I'm like, damn it. Or when he's deployed, I'm like, I'm not going to see any movies. And he comes back. He's seen all of them.
On deployment.
And I'm like, I waited 6 months to see a movie, and I didn't have to. This is bullshit.
Yeah.
But yeah. So what else you got for me?
What do you got for me?
I don't know.
We don't know each other very well, so what do you got for me?
I don't know.
I've got plenty, but
do you?
I'm giving you a free shot.
So I don't I think my biggest thing I had is I have to thank you for what you said to your wife out loud, because actually my husband and I I went down to North Carolina to see him, and they have an awesome drop-in daycare, date night daycare down there. So I dropped the kids off and we went to dinner. I was telling him about the episode with your wife and how much it impacted me. But I think that the one thing I want to say is thank you for that episode, because you said the things that other people that might be in a similar situation, such as the one that you were in, or even the one that we were in, you said the things that you don't get to hear as, all the time. On your wife was struggling with breast cancer, and those are all the things that you went through that maybe you didn't tell her all of those things at the time, because there's so much other stuff going on. My husband and my husband's a very alpha, he doesn't talk about feelings and emotions. He's just this is set.
Right.
It's not really a question that I have for you, but it's more, I want to thank you, because even hearing you say that to your wife, I witnessed some of the things that my husband, just in his body language and stuff that he went through. And he was trying to be strong for us, but he doesn't say what he's feeling. Sometimes you need to hear that from somebody. And me telling him that allowed him to open up a little bit, I guess. But I definitely want to thank you for that, because it meant, even though you weren't talking to me, you're talking to your wife, it meant a lot to hear that as somebody who struggled with some health issues that we didn't know the outcome of twice now. I'm kind of tired of that. I don't want to do that anymore.
It takes its toll.
And it doesn't just, and my mom and I were talking about it, it doesn't just take your toll. If you let as somebody who's on the receiving end of the medical diagnosis, a negative one, and you're going through that battle yourself, if if you kind of bring yourself, you put on a brave face for everyone around you, even when you don't feel like you have it in you, you have to, because what happens to your caretakers then? Like, they're coming down with you at some point,
Right.
But do you have any advice for the teenage years? Because I fear that with children, like my girls.
So we're going through it. We're going through it right now. I've got to keep a vigilant overwatch on the digital travels.
Do you use any apps for like watching?
So,
and are we giving away secrets to your kids?
No, not at all. They know who Dad is. They know what I'm capable of. They know where I've been, where I've worked, different assignments in the past, DIA, NSA, elsewhere. And they also know I don't play.
Yeah.
So, but there's it's a dichotomy, right? You have to teach them to make good decisions on their own. And if I lock down the system, there's no opportunity for them to make a mistake.
Yep.
You can't place a bubble around them indefinitely. Not even a cyber bubble. They will get to a device that you don't have access to, and they will search and look and taste and feel and all of that. So how do you manage that? And the approach that I've chosen to take is to trust them, educate them, inform them, arm them, equip them, but trust them and love them. And it's bit me in the ass a couple of times. Right? But I will say that so we had an instance just recently. Oldest decided to make an account and on a network saying that he was 18. I found out that that's not the case. Well, I found out that he had made the account, and so I asked him. I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I fucked up, Dad." I said, "Yeah." I said, "But fortunately, I'm that safety net, and I caught you." I said, "So here's what we're going to do. You're going to tell your mom, not me. But when you tell your mom, you tell her how you're going to fix it, how you're going to make it better." And he says, "Are you teaching me how to get out of it, or not to not?" And I said, "No, I'm teaching you to deal with your own actions, and to understand the repercussions of your behavior online, and then to make it right and set it straight with your mother, because I'm not there right now. So how did you? Don't worry about that. Let's fix the problem." And he was like, "All right." So I talked to Liz this morning, and she said, "Yeah, I talked to your boy. We got a plan." Okay, all right. But that's my advice. They're going to make mistakes. I mean, eventually you're going to give them the keys to the car.
Yep.
And people die every day off of that. It's not as I guess visceral but it is just as dangerous for them to have access to devices in this information age, because there's so much that goes wrong. I have a close friend of mine, former Marine. He's a HSI agent out in Korea, and their mission set is broad and deep. But where he's dug in is in sex trafficking and in child pornography. He's been over several times to Okinawa to testify in court cases involving active duty military. And that's horrific to me. But it happens often enough that we've got terminology and policy on this stuff. That frightens me as a father. Yeah. It frightens me as a leader of Marines, and I mean that those are some of the things we have to be vigilant of amongst the force. But it is, And so, you can't throw your head in the sand about it. You can only, educate, inform, but to a great extent, you still have to trust them. And so, like I said, they'll make mistakes. Hopefully they're not the type of mistakes that they can't recover from. And you have to, I've got to be upfront with the boys about that. Don't take pictures of your genitalia and send it to, the girl down the street. Just as simple as that.
Yeah.
That is not acceptable. It's also potentially punishable by law. So, choose carefully, and I kind of one of the standard is, would you want your mom to know? And so that's why for this last transgression, you're going to tell your mom that you were out there pretending like you're 18 when you're 17 and a half, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, and that's the other thing is like you will be 18 soon. So how are you going to use this access? And I had to explain to him, the digital representation, the profiles that you craft when you're attempting to attract a mate or a contact or a good time, they're a digital representation that has been crafted in order to attract. It's not an accurate depiction of the individual behind that profile page. Yeah. And so, you have to be mindful of that. He gets it. But of course, I think back to the stuff that I was putting my dad through when I was 17. And then, thinking back when my dad was 17, I was 2 years old. So, I'm very lucky to a great extent. Enrique's still involved in Boy Scouts, and he's done stuff with drama and Model Congress. And I mean, he's a very intelligent kid, sharp kid. But like most of us at his age, he wants to grow up way too fast. Yeah. So and that's the danger, right? Is because they get exposed to quite a bit very soon. But at the same time, I was listening to Eddie Murphy when I was younger than Vicente. I had the raw and delirious tapes on cassette tape, and I'd hide with a boombox with my buddies, behind the house, and we'd giggle and snicker and listen. And another buddy had copies of Richard Pryor, stuff that is completely inappropriate for children that age. And I can say I turned out all right, but what is available to these kids right now is beyond.
I mean, it's just like, are you 18? Click here. And like, you just have to click. A kid just has to click. Like, what incentive do they have other than maybe upbringing, fear of like consequences to not click? Yeah, I'm 18 or I'm 21. Like, it's click a button if you're 18. Right. Sure, I'm 18 today.
So, RedTube, Pornhub, XXX, all of that is just a few keystrokes away. Press enter. Yeah. My boys have computers in their bedroom. Although I do run Sophos on the house, which gives me history. I don't get I don't push notifications. There are some settings where they've been set to warn, and then from a security standpoint, for malicious sites, those will get blocked and they'll be told why. And then for the ones that are blocked, when I get those notifications, I'll tell them, hey, you're on that site. There's malware associated with it. You should think about where you're going on the internet. Stay out of those seedy alleys. And then at that point in time, once that's triggered, I'll go through and look at their history and pull that up. And hey, until you're grown and paying your own bills and you're buying your own internet access, that IP address belongs to me. And I will be vigilant. Yeah. But I also don't want to be, totalitarian, big brother-ish in how I approach it. But I mean, you got to teach them to be good netizens, I guess is an appropriate term in that. but, how do you think that you'll handle it?
So we are frequent flyers at the ER right now because I tell them, you're going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt. And then they keep doing it. And if we get hurt, then, you have to learn consequences somewhere. I'm not really a helicopter parent, I don't think. Living up here, though, there's so many people. Like, I have one kid who's like right on me and the other one who's wandering behind me looking at things, and they take off in two different directions very easily. And up here, there's so many people, you just have to watch it. So I guess I'm helicopterish in that sense. But other things, like, my kids they give me a run for my money, but I give them a leash to a certain extent. I mean, they're only 3. I literally have had a leash too. I want to point that out. I said I would never be one of those parents, and then I had 2 kids who go the opposite direction. I can't do it. So
we did not do the leash thing. But yeah, I can understand.
Yeah,
I can understand.
Like we didn't ever think about it until we were up here where there's such crowds and you're walking and your kid is gone, like in a heartbeat, just lost. Like, I don't know. And we only needed to use them like 3 times. They play with them at the house, like, and walk each other around the house. Cool, whatever. But we've only had to use them like out in public like 3 times. And those 3 times I was thankful that I had them because they're little bear backpack leash things. But I said I would never have them. I was that judgy person before I had kids, and then I had them and I realized you can't judge everyone.
Right.
But, yeah, so, but I let them we let them learn a little bit through consequences of their actions, and they don't like the consequences. So now when I tell them to turn off their iPads, I might have to tell them 2 times or 3 times, but they pause it themselves and turn it off and then go do whatever we need to do.
So from an app, from here right now, I can turn off the boys' access to the internet.
I need to download that app because I'm going to need it in the future.
I use the Orbi.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
I've heard about it. Yeah.
And it's legit. Sean asked me, does it do beamforming? He had a couple of Hibikis, too many at that point in time. Does it do beamforming? And no, it doesn't do beamforming. It does have a backhaul. So it's got 3 channels. The main router and the other base station will and the repeater actually will communicate on one channel, and then it's got the 2.4 and 5 gig channels for all the other devices in the vicinity. But the app is very slick, and like I said, I can turn it off on the boys whenever I want to, and I do so frequently when their chores aren't done. I get home and hey, you're not ready to go like I told you to 2.5 hours ago, and that so I do hold that over their head. But talking about your girls and learning things the hard way, would you let them join the Marine Corps?
Yes. I only say that, like, I went through some shit in the Marine Corps. I'm not even gonna lie about the stuff that was said to me or done. It was rough, but a lot of females went through some serious shit to get us to where we are. And I know it's going to be better by the time that they go through it to a certain extent, but no.
It'll be perfect.
No, but my parents never tried to stop me. Okay, I take that back. I knew I was going to join the military from a very young age, probably 2nd grade. I told you I was going to join the military, and that's it. That's been my trajectory. My dad was like, you're going to college first. He was like, I want to enlist. You're going to college first. So I went to college, and then I dropped out and enlisted because you can always be an officer, but you can't always be enlisted. Like, so, but and my mom and my dad really, they never tried to stop me from doing those things, even though it was maybe out of their comfort zone. So they have to make their own decisions in life. And if this is what I hear a lot of people saying, I never let my kid do this. I never let my kid do this. Well, guess what? I'm a better person for it. Yeah, I went through, as a woman, you go through some crap. But at the same time, like, I'm the person I am because of that crap I went through. And if I didn't go through all of that shit, I would not be the strong person I am today that was able to make it through some of the most difficult things I've had to go through in my life. So why would I say no to that? They're going to have to learn to fight their own battles. And maybe that's one of them. I don't know. So my husband would probably tell you differently. Like, hell no, they're going in the Air Force if they want to go somewhere. But no, I can't say I would. I have to let them follow the path that they choose in their life, and you have a choice when your child chooses to do something like that. You can either be a part of their life and go on the journey with them, or you can lose that relationship that you have with them, so I can't see ever. I mean, okay, there are some professions I would probably definitely say no to, but Marine Corps isn't one of them.
Okay.
So
what outfield would you recommend to them?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I like the occupational I'm in because it's challenging, but it might not be their thing. You kind of have to be a little bit of a geek, I guess, to fully embody our MOS. I was a winger before. I was a crew chief and weapons and tactics instructor on the CH-53 Echo. And there were things I loved about that too. But also that wasn't a female-friendly environment, really. Right. So, but yeah, I don't know. I think I ask a lot. When I have had new Marines coming into me, I'd always sit down and ask them these series of questions about their interests in civilian life or whatever, and what they aspire to be. And a lot of them, this is kind of like our career path is kind of falling into things that they have an interest in their real life. I just want them to, if they do join, to do what makes them happy. If infantry is open and they want to go be in the infantry, go ahead. But I want them to follow their passions.
What do you like about this occupational?
Oh, the challenge, the people. So a lot of the people I've met, I have to say, like, I still have some friends from the community that I was in, and I love them dearly. They were some of my worst enemies at one point, and now they're my best friends. But I love the people and the challenge and watching things come together because of people working together and the different ways that people think. And I mean, you put a bunch of 2600s in a room and they're going to fight. Like, and you've seen it, the requirements conferences and everything. Like,
yeah, I just had a conversation with Mary Rangel about that.
Mm-hmm.
She was talking about the fact that there was a lot of traffic on a document that she was working on. She was soliciting input. And
we've talked about you in this document, actually.
Yeah, and
I know what you're talking about.
And my response to her was, everybody on that email chain is the smartest dude in the room, but they're all in different rooms as they're engaging on this email. So you have to take that into consideration. And my humble advice to another master sergeant was, this occupational field is vicious at the E8, E9 level. And some would argue even before, but particularly at this level. And so what I encouraged her to do was kind of to do what I've done, in that you have to identify trusted sources of information who you can go to that aren't going to lord it over you when you say, hey, I don't know this. And, part of it, you have to humble yourself and commit seppuku and spill your guts and say, hey, you know what? I've never been exposed to this aspect of either the Marine Corps or our occupational field, what have you. And I need some help. And I did that with Sean Nicol. I was going through an O-plan revision. I needed some help, and he, in a way that was surprising for me, because at that time, the previous interaction that I had with him was he was very abrasive and confrontational. But then we kind of hashed it out and we were good. So then years later, I reached out to him and he was more than helpful. And then there's other individuals like Kevin Simmons was another one. When I checked in at Radio Battalion, when I checked in at the MEF, he was at the Radio Battalion. I'm a boot master sergeant, whatever that means, and I could pick up the phone and to the ops section, and we could talk through things, and he would give me from his perspective why the tasking that came down was invalid and needed to be either reclaimed or it should have been short stopped at my position, and I'm taking some cognitive load off of their part by doing that. By validating some of those requirements. And so, for me, I was like, okay, so I can't hide in the 2. I've got to be in the 3 and also got to be in the 6. And now I got to, even further, I got to go to the division across the parking lot and speak to the 2 and the 3 and the 6. Then there's the MIG, right? And I've got to be able to go over there and make sure that me and Master Guns Judo are on the same sheet of music. Or by extension, there's right across the street from the MIG, there's Intel Battalion. So I can't, there's no rest for the wicked at 3MEF. And if I'm being honest, it gets to be a lot if you incorporate required interaction with MCSE, required interaction with in Hawaii and Washington, MAR4PAC, JIOC, RADBIN. So, like I told her, I said, if there's any point in time where you send me an email and I don't get back to you immediately, it's not because I didn't want to, it's because I'm swamped. But I will get back to you when I can get back to you. But identify your trusted agents and then grow that community, right? So that when you're working on a document like this, you get it through those vetted personalities who you've established that rapport with. And then when you push it out to the crowd, you're not having to defend it yourself because you've already got buy-in from the ones that have helped contribute it to get to that 80, 85%, whatever the case may be. What did she say?
Well, we had a similar conversation when she first checked in because, I don't care what anybody in this community says, until you sit your ass at headquarters Marine Corps, at I Department, or whatever else we're going to be, DCI, or, who knows where we're going to belong tomorrow. But until you've sat your ass there and seen the shit that comes down that we are battling, you have no right.
Right.
And she's like, I feel like I was like, everybody who comes in here, you do not know what you're doing. You have to get adjusted and acclimated. I was like, phone a friend. You know that you can always ask somebody to read an email before you send it. And she we're very inappropriate jokers there. But anyway, we really have a small group of people up there in our community, but they are making some serious headway for us. But the frustrating part is up there, and I told her this, you're playing a long game. The OPFOR sees 6 months to the next year out. That's what they're focused on. What do they need to do to survive to meet their mission and do these things 6 months to a year? We're playing the 25-year game. So when you bounce what we're working against, in the long shot, against what an OPFOR is working, their input is only going to be from what they can see at that level. Yeah. Whereas we're sitting in all these meetings talking about all these hierarchy of things, and there's power players and stuff that we're, you guys don't see any of that. But we're up there trying to write the plans of policy that will affect us in 10 years. So when you send out a document, and I looked at some of the comments on the one that we were talking about, it's some of it was just writing it, and even though it's written and you can't talk to the person, it's condescending. Why? Why do you have to be condescending in that?
Yeah.
If you have a legitimate concern about what's in this, have an adult conversation about it. Don't be condescending. Because you have no effing idea 98% of what went into coming up with just that piece of something, or what that's a piece of. So it's rough. And so she had told me what you said. I was like, he's fucking right. Look at this shit. Look at all the comments you have. You cannot. So I was like, go back to square one. What was the question that we were trying to answer? Eliminate everything that does not have a shred to do with that. Like, that's it. Answer that question. Cut that down by 3 paragraphs down to like 2. You can answer that question. And then avoid everybody else's input right there. Like, you don't even have to deal with it because that's secondary. Right. And that's not the question that was asked. So she's like hit the ground running. And everybody that like, I told Derry Cross when he got up there after he took over for John, I was like, you have some seriously big shoes to fill, but you're going to do it. And he's kicking ass up there. Yeah. But even when John came, like I met John and I was blown away by him, but it took him time to get to who he was up there. Yeah. And it's a long, frustrating process. Yep. I mean, we had a SIGINT requirements conference last year, and I forget who it was that went after John for something that he did, and I wanted to punch the dude in the face. I don't even remember who it was. Brain tumor. But because I saw the toil and the sweat and the time that he put into getting that there, and it was not easy. And he made the right decision because he saw the big picture. But everybody who comes up there, I walked in, I didn't have somebody to really turn over with because Dawson was there before me and he was gone for a while. So I walked in, and Chris Passarella, who also, by the way, said that you asked him to do a podcast episode. And he's like, well, I told him I couldn't. I was like, why? He's like, well, they want to hear from 2600s. I was like, I don't think he asked you because he doesn't want to fucking hear from you, dude. Like, you have a story to tell. And he's like, okay, I'll do it after Joya. So just remember that. He said after he's done with Joya, you got him. But yeah, it's our section, we call it like the land of the broken toys, because one by one we were all like falling to some random like severe medical issue that went on. But yeah,
you're going to generate a rumor that place is cursed.
It's headquarters, Marine Corps Intelligence Department is definitely cursed. Like there's no way around that. But yeah, no, I have, I really liked what you told her, and I was like, do it. He's right.
Did she let you read the note that I wrote her?
No, she told me, but no.
Yeah, I essentially because she was on the phone doing something, I had to leave, so I just wrote her a quick note like, hey girl, you got this. Mm-hmm. I may not have the answer that you're looking for, but I'm always willing to put my nose to the grindstone. Although I am in the future. And it's difficult to collaborate and coordinate. Mm-hmm. I do make every effort I can to get over here to the East Coast as often as possible using other people's money.
You have to. Like, you guys have no money. Like, I'm not being a jerk, but we always have these conversations with Third Rad, not Third Rad. Third Rad, like the guys that are out in Okie or whatever, and they're like, do you have money? We're so poor that we only like commute around the NCR because it's free.
Exactly.
We have to like beg for money for even EWS to go places, and we need to. So one of the takeaways that has become part of my genetic makeup is if you're not at the table, your ass is on the menu. And I wholeheartedly believe that. I've seen it. So I do my best to engage on 3MEP's behalf. And, part of my road show, as it were, around here in the NCR these past 2+ weeks now has been, of the 3MEPs, only one is inherently forward, only one is inherently joint, and only one is inherently coalition. At all points in time. So, if there's something that you're working on, you're looking for perspective from the OPFOR, we will fully engage and give you our perspective. I almost feel as though I'm time's running short. I'm kind of reading between the lines. There's for
for whatever reason, some of them, I guess, justified, some of them maybe not so much. There seems to be interest in getting me out to the East Coast in some shape, form, or fashion after Enrique graduates from Kupasaki. And like I told Sam Carter the other night, if I got to take my medicine, at least let me pick the flavor of NyQuil that I've got to suck down. But
you know what flavor you're picking?
I don't. I don't. But just like any good Marine, I'm going to do the best with whatever.
Yeah.
I've long ago resigned myself to the fact that it especially now as a Master Sergeant, it's not about me. It's about what are the needs of the Marine Corps, the OC field, and then my family in that order, right? At least depends on who the audience is, but if it's Liz, it's the family first. Mm-hmm. But what was your favorite duty station during your time in I department?
Well, some good things have come from my department, some really good things, and some, in some dark days.
Right.
But when I think about it, a lot of, I want to say 2nd Radio Battalion to a certain extent.
America's Rapid.
I spent like 7 years there.
I did 5.
Stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went enlisted to officer, but there nobody wanted to go back to 2nd. So they're like, do you just want to go TAD and become a warrant officer and come back? I was like, sure, why not? So, but some of the friendships I've forged there and the lessons I've learned there have been some of the most impactful on me, not just professionally, but personally.
Right.
And that has stayed. Like Major Passarella and I started working together at 2nd. I count him as one of my closest friends now. I just think that so many good things came out of, and actually out of 2nd Radio Battalion, we had, when I was a crew chief, I deployed on the 26th MU in 2001 to Afghanistan, and I met, in berthing, all the chicks lived together, Robin Greeby, Alina Duncan, or I didn't meet Alina at that point, I met Robin, and coming off that, we became good friends. She was a 2nd Radio Battalion Marine, and then we came off the MU, and I went out to Iraq 2003, and on that ship, I met Alina Duncan, who is like, Robin Greeby told me that she knows you, and she was a 2nd Radio Battalion. So, and then coming off of that ship, I got introduced to Loretta Howerton, who is friends with the two of them, right. Who is now the infamous Loretta Sonneman.
Yeah.
So I had hung out with all of them from 2nd Radio Battalion before I didn't know what SIGINT was at this point. I was a crew chief, and that was my thing until my career came to a crossroads because of a medical issue of all things. I had a surgery that went wrong and was a little bit of malpractice, and they said I could never fly again. And I kind of did some research, and Joe Black saved my career actually at that point. But all those people were 2nd Radio Battalioners. I knew nothing about the SIGINT community, but I finally went to 2nd Radio Battalion. It's just all of these people that I had met coming together, right. And it was a great experience. And I still, I'm the relationships that I forged, not just the missions and the things that we did, but the relationships I forged there.
The smell's not great, but
no, definitely not. That's the worst part. Like, you're running that curve where they have a PFT course, and you're like, oh my God, it smells like bacon. It smells so delicious. And that smell of like the shit processing facility hits you in the face. You're like, oh. Yeah. But yeah, so I do love me some French Creek though. But yeah.
What's the single greatest challenge of the ARC field as you see it?
Oh, people resistant to change.
Permafrost, that's what I call it.
Yeah, it's hard to talk. I was talking to Derry about this the other day because there are things that I'm not saying I have all the right answers, but I'm saying that
Yeah, most of them.
No, I have none. I'm actually pretty humble about the fact that I don't know shit. So, but I am opinionated. But the thing is, we go into a room and we have to talk things through. I'm open to hear other people's remarks, unless if they're just flat out like being assholes and condescending. Right. Like nobody wants to hear you then.
Exactly.
But I think we're our own worst enemy in the fact that we're resistant to change. Like, this is how I did it, so this is how it always has to be done. Well, sorry, the world's still moving forward. You can't stand still. You got to adapt. You have to see the future and kind of like reach for it now in order to be there when it comes, you know? So I think we're our own worst enemy in the fact that we're just closed off to change a lot of times. That's not saying that we don't change and that there aren't awesome people in the community. It's just we get held up. But yeah.
I'm concerned with the recruitment and the retention of talent.
Yes. But at the same time, like...
I mean, I understand attrition's built into the game and not everybody's going to stick around and do, you know, a career 20, 30, especially with the retirement model being modified as it has. But, you know, and I asked this of General Stewart many, many, many years ago, which put my career path on a tangent, so to speak. But, you know, what do we say to those Marines to stick around, to stay green?
It's not money.
No.
It's not money, and I can't stand throwing money at things because when you have a Marine who's only staying in for money, like their heart's not in the game.
And when the minute somebody offers them more money,
it's I don't the retention problem. Leadership. I remember when I was at second and there's an opening for a gunny on 11.2. And I asked the ops chief at the time if I could get that gunny slot. He said, no, I'm going to use you in 2013. I told him, no, I'm going to get pregnant in 2013. So put me on it now. I was just kidding. He's like, nobody's ever threatened me to get pregnant to go on a deployment. So you can go. But I walked in the door for that deployment. Like it was with John Tiffany was the senior enlisted on that.
I know that guy.
Yeah. One of my work dads. But I walked in and it was I got sent to them like 2 days before block leave for the deployment or something. And I walk in and there's this Marine and I've already been told he's a leadership problem and he's just a jerk. And he tells me, I don't respect staff NCOs. He's a Lance Corporal. I'm like, okay. And it goes into, like, there's some history there. So this Marine, I didn't know the history of what had transpired that made him so bitter. But he's like, I'm not going to trust you. I'm not going to trust anybody. I turned around, I walked out, I slammed the door. And then I took a deep breath and I walked in. I was like, I'm going to fucking prove it to you. I'm not whoever you're talking about. I am not that person. And I can tell you that now, but you're not going to believe me. I'm going to prove it to you one way or another. And I can't tell you how long it's going to take. But it turns out that this Marine, he had a staff sergeant in charge of him before. He's from a town like close to where I'm from in New York, like maybe a 35-minute drive away. He lost his sister. I think she was 16 years old when she died. I think she had some sort of health issues. And his dad was estranged and not part of his life. And his mom died unexpectedly. She was apparently electrocuted. And she was incapacitated for a few days before she died. Nobody knew she was there. So he loses the two most important people in his life. And then here's a staff sergeant saying, I need this next of kin stuff. Like, give me a next of kin. He's like, I don't have one. And he's like, give me a next of kin. He's like, the Marine said, I don't have one. And he said, I don't give a fuck about you. I don't give a fuck who you put down here. Put fucking somebody down here. I don't fucking care. And that Marine instantly shut off. And he was going to be shut off to every staff NCO from that point, because the kid just got back from his mom's fucking funeral.
Right.
Like, you have to know these kids. So when you go into the whole, like, in the end, I still call that kid and check in on him. And so does Tiffany. I got to know him way better. He called me on block leave and said, I don't know. It was like, I forget, like 11 o'clock at night or something. He's like, I don't know what to do, Gunny. I don't know what to do. And so my mom and I met him at a diner. You remember this? Mm-hmm. Met him at a diner the next day and said, let's just work through this. Let's work through this. And we did. And now to this day, I stay in touch with him. He's not still in the Marine Corps because the Marine Corps broke him. Like, one or two good people don't make up for the rest of them.
Right.
I think a big thing is opening up opportunities to them. One of the things that I'm not saying I have the right answer, but I wanted to know everything about my Marines. I wanted to know if they had kids, how old they are, like, why a wife situation. What does their wife do for a living? Is she seeking education? What does she want to do? Because that's a big part of your family's a big part of why we're not great with spouses and families and being understanding. But I wanted to know what their passions were. And I wanted them to pursue them because I don't care if they stay in or not. Like, not that I don't care. There's some people you want to stay in, but
right.
Make them a better person. So I encouraged all my Marines to go to college. Like, not an overload, like, start now. I know you're going to go when you get out of the Marine Corps, but if you have the time, start now. And just study something that makes you happy. Like, I think investing in our talent pool is a big thing. Beyond when you find happiness in that and a group of people that support you, your passions, I think it makes people more likely to stay.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I hate when we make people teach a Marine something and they're not passionate about it. You have to be passionate about the subject that you're teaching to them. Otherwise, they're never going to find fulfillment in that. They're just not. You have to be inspired to inspire. That's why I think Master Sergeant Sonavend, he's very excited about, like, and he's very smart and he's very passionate about what he does. And I think that rubs off on the Marines, and they want to be around that and they want to learn and they want to take that next step and be better. But recruitment, like, we have to treat our Marines like they're human beings and like they have interests beyond this, and we have to be passionate ourselves about what we do. There's a lot of negativity and toxicness in our MOS. Emo-ish, maybe. I don't know. It's weird. It's not weird. Yes, it is weird. I came from a different community. It's a little bit exhausting. But yeah. So
after lat-moving, you made the decision to become a warrant officer.
I did.
What's that all about?
So
it's like you guys are supposed to be SMEs, right?
Right. So I see things like
it's like I told, I think, who did I tell this to? I said, I think it was Jerome. It was like, and like Bane, you adopted the darkness, but I was born in it, thrived upon it.
Yeah.
All of that. But, I say that, tongue in cheek because, I've heard that in certain circles, but, there are plenty of examples that disprove the rule, and that you have to have started in this in order to be great at it or even just competent.
So I had to be humble coming over. And like I said, Joe Black kind of saved my ass and my career, and he set my career on a trajectory, probably that he didn't know that he was doing at the time.
Right. But I spoke with him recently, by the way.
Did you?
He's going to be a future guest.
He should be. I highly recommend it.
It's just a matter of time. He's a hard target.
But I came over as a staff sergeant, and I came over as a staff sergeant who dropped into the zone for Gunny unexpectedly, very quickly, and got selected. And I was like, "Holy shit, what am I doing?" But understandably, But I walked into this MOS saying, I'm a lat mover and I don't know shit. Lance Corporal, teach me what you're doing.
Right.
And there's an element of being humble about that gosh, people in general are afraid to have. So what really made me want to make the transfer was I thought out some issues that we were having at the battalion, and I asked a lot of people, like, what would you say about this? And they gave me their input, and I streamlined this whole plan to implement something. And I went to talk to some of the officers, and they're like, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. And then what pissed me off more than anything, and there are some other things that went into this, there were changes that I wanted to affect from a bigger picture, but the thing that hammered it home was when I became a warrant officer and I presented that same plan as enlisted, and the same people gobbled it up. They're like, this is awesome. Fuck you. But because just because the only thing that changed was my rank, fuck you. So one of the rules I have with my Marines, one of the reasons why, and that's one of the reasons why I made I crossed over to the dark side. It's pretty dark. But one of the rules I have with my Marines is there's no bitching. There's no bitching allowed. If you see something's fucked up, you tell me it's fucked up, but I want you to follow that up with an idea or your suggestion to fix it. It might not be the right one, but I want to hear you. And I want to know if you're really putting in the thought to change things. And that was something that wasn't necessarily afforded to us as enlisted. And I hate to say it. But it's true. It takes a really solid person to look at somebody who's junior and say, you know what? You're right. You have a better idea than I do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess I've been fortunate in that I've always had leadership that encouraged or enabled me to change the game. From being, I think I was a Lance Corporal, and, we had a bunch of Marines sitting at DLI just awaiting training. And I knew that we had, because Liz was teaching out in town in was it Seaside? Yeah, in Seaside, right outside Monterey. And they had a lot of kids there, and they were struggling with English and English acquisition. And so I asked the deck gunny if we could start a reading program. We'll go out on, Thursdays and wearing chucks and, carpool, and we'll be safe. And, I did an op order, as a Lance Corporal. And he's like, all right, we'll pitch it up to the CO and Master Guns, and instead of just sitting around here fucking doing field day over and over and over again, let's get out and do some community service. And Liz reminded me, he's like, that was the first community service project that you did, and you didn't do it alone. You did it with a whole fucking platoon. And we still got pictures of that, big bulky Marines sitting there reading Dr. Seuss and the Cat in the Hat and all of that. One Fish, Two Fish, the Lorax, you name it. And then finally getting into Radio Battalion as a sergeant, because I was a 3-year clearance hold, past transgressions and all that. I was afforded the opportunity to do some outside the norm. The whole battalion didn't deploy. It was just me as part of a Riverine training team, or just me and my team. Small Det, T. De La Plaine, went with us to Haiti. And then I went to Iraq after that. But in each of those situations, I had a lot of latitude. And so for me as a leader, I've extended the courtesy forward to my subordinates at all costs. And I mean, it's about trust, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll botch it up, but for the most part, it's been all positive. But and you kind of touched on it earlier when you're talking about that permafrost, that reluctance to change. I don't know if we want to be in a warfighting organization that doesn't allow for that level of initiative and innovation with the coming, operational environment that we're going to find ourselves in. That distributed leadership and those capabilities are inherent to success in some future battlefield. And Sam and I were talking about this the other morning, in that as we're tooling up for algorithmic centric warfare, I think what's going to make the difference is when we can look at all the information that's being provided to us, to include AI and cognitive computing and machine learning and all that stuff, and we say no, because I've got a hunch that this is what's really going on, and that's what we're going to go with, and that'll be the decisive factor. And although everything inside of him will be screaming, you're going to discredit all of this technology and all the resources levied, towards these things, and you're going to go with your gut instinct. That's right. And the only way we get to that point, that intuitive decision making, where you can kind of like short circuit the OODA loop and just go straight to act. We got to give them opportunities to be able to do that. It's going to incur mistakes, and it's going to incur some loss. But we have that. I mean, that's all in the game. So, if anybody's out there that's listening to this and listening to what Jenn had to say, I would encourage you to encourage your subordinates to make mistakes. And if you're in a position where you've got leadership that is so reluctant to that, don't give up. Just because it's a requirement. So what calculus are you applying to the determination of when you'll retire? Especially in your current situation. Because it's gotta be chewing on you.
Yeah. Actually, Jim and I just had this discussion the other day. I called him and I was like, I need your advice. He's like, do you want my advice as your friend Jim, or do you want my professional advice? I was like, this isn't about our friendship. This is about what's best for the community. I'm stuck. And the reason why I'm on a med board right now, not because I had a brain tumor and I had brain surgery. The med board actually told me that having my brain tumor removed was an elective procedure and that they wouldn't allow it. There was a little meltdown that went down with that. But I did get the brain surgery, so that's a plus. But I'm in this loophole because I failed to get the care that I needed. I'm on this medication that I have to get infused every 4 weeks. Otherwise, my symptoms will come back and for the myasthenia. But they were supposed to start scaling me down and wean me off of it. You have to wean off of it slowly. Otherwise, if you are in remission, it's going to come back full force and you're going to have myasthenia gravis again. And I got more appointments with my doctor at Walter Reed when I lived in Lejeune and was flying up here than I do living right down the street from him. So they forgot to lower my dosage for 6 months. And I was asking for it. And now, because of that, and being med boarded, because of that dosage, like I'm not off those meds yet to see if I'm in remission, so I'm still non-deployable. So there's a chance that I'm in the weaning process now. I'm going to come off of this, but the board's already going to make a decision. But one of the things we talked about, I told him, I was like, I don't feel like it's fair for me to go and compete against my peers for promotion when I can't run that PFT and they have to.
Right.
I can do my job. Like, let's be honest. How many warrant officers are deploying right now? Yeah, right? None. We sit at a desk and do a job. But if the flag goes up, I would have to give that to somebody else to carry my weight. And I'm not comfortable with this. Like, I'm not comfortable with somebody else carrying my weight. And I feel like in this whole medical travesty, I've caused other people to carry my weight to a certain extent.
Right.
And it's not fair. So Jim and I talked about me dropping retirement papers, but I'm stuck on this board. So we have to see what they're going to say. And then I can drop them. But we'll see. That's what's going into it right now. What's best for the community. Honestly, the 2602 community is hurting badly. And it's not going to get any better. We're going to have, with the expansion of the roles that we're going to fill and billets that we're going to fill, we're already not hitting our quota. It's going to get worse. To try to build up.
Quota in terms of total end strength?
Mm-hmm. So,
why do you think that is? I know I'm dragging you to the deep end of the pool, but
oh my God.
Why do you think that is?
If you're not ready to make the commitment, don't put in a package. Number one, don't do it. That's for starters. What else? Man, I'm going to have to bite my tongue.
Or you can do like your daughter said. Just let it go.
Just let it go. Yeah. No, we've talked about it. There's some issues like the cyber MOS stand up that took some people out of our job field, our rock field, and so that hurt. There's been a few issues with not filling all of the billet selections. Can't think of the word aphasia that we have for the
boat spaces.
The next class. So whatever. But Jim works every day to try to balance those numbers for us and what it looks like for the bean counters to figure out how many actual allotments that we get. But it's rough. And then we have people retiring and it's.
We had two retiring, right? Keeker and Mush.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I don't know. There's a few other people I think on the block that are going to be retiring too, so that's going to affect us. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of dynamics that go into it.
Right.
But not everybody is meant to be a warrant officer, and I say this because there needs to be strong staff NCOs in this field.
Yeah. And
they need to be that balance. And I really respect that, and there needs to be strong warrant officers too. I think you need a good pool of people with diverse backgrounds to make this happen all across the board. So, yeah.
If not for the Marines, what would Jenn Cocco be?
I have no idea. I probably have completed my degree in forensic investigations and probably moved on to studying profiling.
So you were down with CSI before CSI was cool.
Yes, and that really ruined it for me. I loved it. And then CSI and all these other, it got big. And then it just it got mainstreamed, and I still wanted to be in the military, so I left college and I joined the military. But I think I'd probably be doing profiling, forensic psychology type stuff.
Could play you in a movie.
Ew. I don't know, and I do not see this at all. But I get Sandra Bullock all the time. Like, you look like Sandra Bullock. Really? No.
I could see. That would be my go-to.
Yeah.
But I could see why others would say that.
I got that, or I get that you look like the chick from Adventures in Babysitting. I was like, does anybody even watch that movie? It was from the 80s. Have you seen it? Yeah. Have you seen it? I do not see that at all.
Elizabeth Shue.
Yeah. I've gotten that a lot, but
no, I don't see it.
I don't see that at all. But those are two people I get more than anything. I also, but for strength and stuff, I don't know. I do like Sandra Bullock, but I'm bad at this. Maybe Sarah Clark, because we get mistaken for each other a lot.
Her hair's too curly.
The other day, so we get it all the time. She's walking, and some Marines are like, good afternoon, ma'am. And
Yeah.
she's like, I'm not. It's not me. And so she had just gotten promoted. Actually, her promotion ceremony I feel like horrible about, but she had just gotten promoted and she was a Master Guns, and this Marine walks by me. And usually I correct them. I'm like, no, that's Master Sergeant or whatever. He walks by me, he's like, good morning, Master Sergeant. I was like, it's Master Guns. Like, just kept walking. He's like, oh. But yeah, she's a force to be reckoned with too.
Yeah. It's been fun to serve with her.
Mm-hmm. I've enjoyed it. Yeah.
When you get a chance and you see her again or you talk to her, ask her what are the details of our pact, her and I.
Okay.
And I'll leave the details of that off of this episode. Who are you going to forward this episode to once it's released?
Oh.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get you a intro and an outro and then like compress the audio and fix it all up, and you'll get a preview copy. And then from there you can tell me if there's anything you need me to take out or extract or edit or add in.
I'll probably send it to my husband.
Okay, that's fair.
But that might be it. He doesn't know this side of me just as much as I don't know.
What do you mean he doesn't know this side of you?
We have like a really big no work kind of rule at our house. I can't talk about some of the stuff that I do. He can't talk about some of the stuff that he does.
Because of classification, right?
No, it's not just that. Like, I know what my husband does for a living. I do. I'm not like, we work some of their stuff.
Right.
But there's some stuff I'm better off, I think, just pleading ignorance to. I got to go to one of his award formations, and he had just got back from it was like a year after he got back, and he was getting a pretty prestigious award, and I listened to what he did in the back. You don't want to say
he
got a Bronze Star.
You didn't want to say because you thought it was bragging?
And he's a very quiet, he's like a silent professional. But I listened to the things that he did, and I could have lost my husband. I could have lost the father of my kids. And I know what he does, but to a certain part to keep this going, or to keep myself going, like when he's gone. Because the night that this went down, it's nothing for me not to talk to him for a week or two or whatever when he's out doing whatever it is that he does. But I called my mom and was like, something, I don't know if you remember this. I told her something's not right. I feel like something's not right. I don't feel right. And that was the night that he was involved in what went down. And just hearing that your spouse risked his life or whatever for the people, the men around him and the mission, you know that that's what he does. But to hear it like put such...
confirmation on it.
Yeah. And I really care about what my husband thinks. Like my mom's sitting here, so she knows exactly what I said. But I keep my circles pretty tight, I have some friends and I really appreciate them, but it's probably just going to be my husband. Cause that's pretty much my number one. He's my ride or die.
So how do you determine who you let close?
Oh, okay. So I say this, I'm very open with a lot of things, like my struggles. But when it comes down to who I'm texting, or if, who I'm checking in on, it's like, it's pretty tight. Like the other, there are people that have come into my life and I don't get to see every day, but I love them. Like I just was texting Loretta yesterday, telling her how much I missed her. And Sarah is like, we go to breakfast on occasion or whatever. But my circle is pretty close. I don't have a ton of time to go out, especially being a single parent up here who doesn't have like as many backup babysitters. I don't have backup babysitters, so I don't get a lot of time to go out. I think people who I find similarities in, who are kind of fighting the same battles that I am at times, and the ones that boost you instead of walk on you or drag you down, those are the people that I choose to keep in my circle, you know? So, yeah, like I said, I have some really, really great friends that have come out of my time here. Chris Passarella has helped me immensely, more than he knows, too, through our kind of similar battles that we've been facing. And he's pretty humble about it. But, yeah. So that's my circle. Did I answer the question, or did I just kind of go around?
You talked about who they are, but
but
how do you determine who makes it in?
Well, I have some people who I've gone through who I keep. I can't.
It has
explain,
to be more than just proximity.
It does. It does. Zach Ensminger. I love Zach. He's awesome. I met him in Georgia, and we've always kind of followed each other, working together. He's super awesome, but it's his he's uplifting too. Yeah. Even when shit's bad, he's uplifting. I like uplifting people who you're like I said, you're kind of going through some similar people who are willing to fight through their battles.
Right.
I feel like those are people worth investing in, and dragging along with you, you know? I don't know, but I really feel like, you know people, there's people I've met in this career, a lot of them. And these are just some of the people that I still keep in touch with, like Nate Cherubini, Dave Wilhelm. I love the two of them, but it's our times that we sat there and were just told each other, we don't know shit, teach us shit. So we don't have these brown bag sessions, the three of us, teaching each other our little piece of the puzzle that we know. And we've had these personal conversations that just really resonated with each other. And I think you kind of know who's got your back when shit's bad, you know?
Yeah. Who can you trust?
Yeah. And it's not just even when
kind of like that young Marine that you were talking about.
Right. But in going through this whole brain tumor thing, it's another big one. People I didn't want to be a victim. I refused to be a victim, and I refused to be treated like one. And for me, it was very hard. And the people that treated me when they asked me how I want to be treated and actually respected it, those are my people. The people that could look past what they wanted to see and be on my side. I think that's what a lot makes it into my circle. Right. Respecting me and my decisions and my wishes just as much as I respect theirs.
So, of all the guests that we had on the podcast so far, and you've already mentioned Passarella and Black. I've asked Loretta, and she said no. But
she's gonna do it.
I got some inside scoop, and a persistent husband of hers is continuing to work on her. But I'll be honest. We were at Radbin the whole time together for the 5 years that I was there, just about. Mm-hmm. And I knew Sunny, but she's so quiet until you get to know her.
Yeah, until you get to know her.
that I never got a chance to know her. Mm-hmm. And I knew Sarah because Sarah was in Alpha Company mm-hmm. with me. And I want to say Loretta was in Bravo Company, if I'm not mistaken. And although I hung out with some of the RT guys, because I had been close with them before, one in particular, who's no longer with us, Joe Weldon. I was married and I wasn't in that crowd mm-hmm. Because I was raising my family.
Yeah.
And as as much as the RT guys don't want to hear it, the SST guys were being used and abused as workhorses at the battalion at the time, and I was constantly gone. Mm-hmm. So when I wasn't gone, I was home.
Yeah.
But I didn't really get a chance to know Loretta very well while we were there, and I've gotten to know her better now that she's the ops chief at Radvin. And it's been great having her in that billet because I can pick up the phone, call her, say, look, this is what I got. What you got on Mo, right? You kicking and scratching, and she's like, well, and she's very subtle when she disagrees with me.
She's the reason. She's the person that made me a warrant officer once I made the switch. She had her subtlety when I was still that staff NCO and she was the ops chief. She would she would just rub her collar, and I knew. I was like, got it. But yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, but that's one of the things about her is that you can she can say so much without saying much at all.
Yeah.
That it's like her bit rate is so high that she can just compress so much information in a small amount of time. It's admirable. And when I found out that she was going to cross check over to be the ops chief out there, I was ecstatic about it. And I'd had some interaction with her when she was at Company I, and she poked Sonny and some of the other mass sergeants that went with me from K-Bay to her shop. She said, it took you. She told me, she said this to me in front of all of them. She's really saying it to them. But she said to them by giving me a compliment, she said, it took you to be here for all of these guys to come and visit. They all kind of like looked around like, was that a low key dig on us? Yeah, it was. But she offered up one of her junior Marines to come out to one of our large scale exercises and serve as a SME. She's like, but first she's like, yeah, he can go, but who's paying for it? It's like, then immediately she had a poker face. Like everything was nice and cordial up until, we started having to get down to brass tacks. I said, we'll pay for it. Don't worry about that. Where's he going to stay? I said, we'll take care of him. We'll pick him up from the airport, make sure he gets to where he needs to go. I'll keep positive control of him at all times. He's in good hands. I'll treat him like one of my own. And so obviously, she was adamant that her Marine was watched out for. But that young individual was coming towards the end of his enlistment, his contract, and there wasn't a determination made about how many boat spaces were going to be available and if he was actually going to get one. He wanted to retain. And so, part of the conversation was, if you can get him in front of leadership and he can get some executive championship to help out his cause for retention, that would be appreciated. And we were able to do just that. I got him in front of General Timberlake, who's since retired. He was a division commander at the time, and General Timberlake said, "Hey, Top, that boy ever needs anything, you let me know." Yeah, that's one hell of a Marine. I'm glad that we got young Marines like him around, particularly in y'all's Ockfield, because he got a better appreciation for what that young Marine was doing out in Hawaii. Still being in the fight from the division CG's perspective. Yeah. And so, when you talk about a strategic corporal who comes from national down to the OPFOR and get a chance to brief, they're inside, Camp Courtney when General Timberlake's, sucking on his toothpick, which was his trademark. For me, that was a great experience. One that I'll never forget, primarily because it wasn't about me. It was about giving that young Marine that opportunity to be able to do that. And he stood right there in the pocket and fielded, 100-mile-per-hour fastball questions from his entire staff. And the G3 was there, the G6, the G2, and the young Marines just sitting there. And me and a couple of other staff and COs hanging in the wings to pick up any foul balls. But for the most part, Corporal just executed flawlessly.
Yeah.
So when I asked him, I said, what are your plans? He's like, if you get to retain and you get a boat space and, where do you want to go? And he's like, they tell me it's not realistic, but this is what I want, Master Sergeant. I said, what's that? He said, I want to go to the schoolhouse. I want to go to Goodfellow. I want to teach the next generation of Marines what it is that I learned. And he said, do you think it's doable? And I said, I think it's admirable that at this stage in your career, you understand that you want to do that, because I was a staff sergeant. And when I got told I got orders to San Angelo, I went kicking and screaming. See, you're already ahead of the curve, Killer. So I think you're going to be all right. But you could immediately tell he was one of Loretta's.
Yeah.
And her leadership had a significant impact on him.
And I appreciate her probably in more ways than she knows. She taught me through the trials and tribulations that she went through, raising Rocco as a dual military, especially with Chris being gone so much, and my husband was gone all the time too. So we were both alone a lot. But then here I was with these two kids, and my husband's in the deployment cycle, getting up to go, and holy crap, I'm out of a childcare option. What do I do?
Right.
Like she taught me the art of finding a nanny that's appropriate for dual military spouses. And the sergeant major called us Thelma and Louise. And we were kind of crazy. We would go rucking in our time. Like when we had free time, we would go do crazy workouts. And she is a force to be reckoned with. Like, I would not mess around with her. But
so Rocco's training jiu-jitsu now.
I know. I heard. Actually, she told me that when we were texting. She said he loved it. Yeah, that's awesome.
So sunny.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, I gave him his first gi. So he came out to Okinawa for some training that he was helping out with, and we how did it start? I picked him up in the morning, Saturday morning, which is when we do our open mat at the WKO dojo right outside of Kadena, underneath the Eagle Lodge, for anybody interested in training in Anoki with the Nova Unyao team. And so we went to row, and he's like, he had a few the night before, and he was like, take it easy. He said, dog, we're not here to thump you. We're just a rough introduction, not rough, a smooth introduction. Mm-hmm. And he's like, all right. So we got on the mats and we had a good time. And then when it was said and done, I gave him the gi that he used, along with the nice shoyu-ro, with the shoyu-ro white belt, which is hard to come by. And so he started training with Rocco, but I have indications and warnings that Loretta's going to start getting on the mats too. So
she'd be awesome.
I'm telling you, she should probably get on there too. So the next time y'all link up, she doesn't have the upper hand.
She is. I will forever be chasing her.
Yeah.
Like, she just is one up.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was an awesome experience working with her, and I just most of the master sergeants that I had working with me when I was when I made the switch to warrant officer have been absolutely awesome, and I've appreciated it. But like I said, I will always have a soft spot for her. She's probably one of my number one.
So let's do this. Top Game Time Machine. We'll rewind it back. Sergeant, not Cocco. What was your maiden name?
Lamarca. What would I do? What do you mean?
Yeah.
So what would I tell somebody?
What would you tell her?
Who? Her?
Sergeant Lamarca.
Go for it.
Knowing everything that you know now.
Don't be afraid and just go for it. And trust yourself. I think that's it. Tend to second guess yourself a lot sometimes, especially I'm a very analytical person, which is a blessing and a curse at the same time. But I just tell myself to go with my gut and follow, like just do what I thought was the right thing and trust myself that I was going to make the right decision. And 9 times out of 10, I would have. But not to be afraid to not make the right decision, you know? So.
Analysis paralysis.
Mm-hmm. Everything. I came from a very rough place in the Marine Corps. And I was successful and I thrived on other people trying to drag me down. But there's a point where I went home at night and it affected me. Like my goal was to never, ever let them see that they got to me. And I did a good job of it, but it destroyed me. At home made me sometimes overly cautious to make the right decision to avoid, some of the stuff that befell me. But that's neither here or there. I would have told myself to just go with it and go with your gut. You're going to make the right decision.
And with that, we're out.